Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to something a little bit different to what we normally do on this channel. We're going to actually do something serious and something that actually means something rather than what we normally do. So I would like to introduce and bid a giant welcome to a very good friend of mine. This is Mrs. Alex. Oh, no, you're not Mrs. You're not married, are you?
No, I'm not that silly.
Okay, fair enough. This is the marvellous Alex Outlaw, who has been a friend of mine for a very long time, and one of the first people who I really wanted to get on this stream due to her experiences with endometriosis. So, Alex, how are you?
I feel like I've been asked that a lot over the last sort of 5 years. Yeah, I'm fine. How are you?
I'm not bad. Better than probably most of the people I'm going to be talking to. Which
Yeah,
is I can be most grateful for, and also it's heartbreaking at the same time. So, I suppose where we can start is if you'd like to tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll go back in time to the start of where everything started to go wrong for you, basically.
Okay. Well, that far back. Okay, so my name's Alex, as you've said, and I'm a singing teacher, and I think that's important, and you'll probably realise why when we start talking about my story.
Yep.
Haven't always been, but yeah, I'm a vocal coach, singing teacher, and also an artist now. You know, lockdown's been weird, so started my own art company.
You are a horrendously talented individual.
Well, you got to do what you got to do, haven't you? You know, sure. I can't do maths or science, so I might as well do something creative. Yeah, so I've had lots of different jobs in my life. I've been a bank manager, I've been a counter manager in a bank, so where I was in charge of all the money. That was stressful. I've been an admin assistant to a publishing company. But yeah, now I do what I love, which is great, and I'm very lucky. And I think if I hadn't had the illness, I don't like calling it an illness, syndrome, whatever it is, I don't know if I'd be doing what I'm doing now. So that's an interesting kind of take on it, I suppose. Yeah, that's me really. I live with Glenn, who's, again, I'll probably talk about later, and he's my partner. He has been for 10 years.
He's more of a concept than a human being, isn't he, really?
He's like a prototype. Yeah, but he's pretty amazing. So
he's a good boy.
I live with him and my little dog Cheese,
Aww.
Who gets us through the day, especially at the moment with sort of walks and stuff. So yeah, that's pretty much me. Nothing that interesting, just a normal person, to be honest. Well, normal, very loose term.
Well, I think that's going to be one of the key things of this conversation, isn't it? That this illness, disease, syndrome, whatever you want to call it, just hits there's it's the great leveler. There is nobody who is above it. There's nobody who's beyond its reach. It can happen to absolutely anybody. Yeah,
it can. And it can happen at any time as well. And, you know, the youngest person I've heard of that actually being diagnosed with it was 14.
Jeez.
Like officially diagnosed. But it can happen anyway up, you know, up until, well, anytime really. Even, I don't know about people in menopause, whether they get diagnosed with it, but I mean, that's the other thing. People have it and they don't even know they've got it for years and years and years, because it's in medical terms, I think it's a relatively newly discovered condition. And a lot more is being spoken about now that they're realizing how vast it is, how widespread it is, and how much of an impact it can have. I hate that word. How much of an effect it can have on people's lives as well.
So where did it start for you? I suppose when and what were the first signs that you experienced that something was wrong?
I was thinking about how to do this, and I think the first time, I'll go with when I decided to go to the doctors about this specifically, and when I realised what it might be. And that was probably when I was about 30, I think, maybe 29. And I started to get really severe, painful periods, like period pain, but it wasn't the normal period pain. But then, skipping a bit, after I'd gone through everything I'd been through and talking to my best friend, Rachel, who's known me since I was, 3.
Yeah.
I realised, actually, she said to me, well, you've always had really terrible periods. Like I used to have like 2-3 days off school with terrible period pain.
God.
And I didn't even realise, like I hadn't even put 2 and 2 together and thought, oh, well, maybe this is what it was. So I actually think that I've had this probably since I started having my periods. So I think that the girl that's been diagnosed at 14, I think if they'd have understood it a bit better when I was 14, perhaps I would have been diagnosed back then. But then going back even further than that, I think maybe I used to get really bad stomach cramps when I was about 6 or 7.
Right.
And I nothing came of it. We didn't know what it was. They called it colic back then because, again, I'm ancient. Gripey tummy, colic, but again, it could have been that my body was developing in a weird way, and it was back then. So to be honest, I've always had stomach problems, always, and I thought it was just IBS. That was what I got diagnosed with initially, and I carried that diagnosis around with me for almost 20 years. So that was, that's been the difficulty, I think, is probably having it diagnosed. And I know I'm not alone in that.
No, it seems to be, from the small amount I've learned of late of this, the lack of diagnosis and how long it takes to actually get a diagnosis is, in this day and age, I found it really hard to believe that people could be suffering with something of this magnitude, in this much pain, and all the effects that go with it for this long. It just seemed ridiculous.
In my experience, and I can only speak from my experience because I haven't necessarily done a lot of, on purpose, I haven't done a lot of research into the condition apart from the basics and the general symptoms, because for me it wasn't appropriate and it wouldn't have been beneficial for me. But from the research I have done, the average time to get diagnosed is 7 years, and that's the average. And for me, I feel like it's taken so much more, like 20 years basically, to get diagnosed. And I think there's 2 different factors with that. There's one that not enough is known about it. They don't know what causes it. They don't know. Everyone presents differently as well. So not everyone's the same. So people have different symptoms. So it's not recognizable through like characterized symptoms. There's some that are general, but like, heavy periods is one that's meant to be a really big one.
Yeah.
I never had that. I had hardly any period at all. Like that wasn't a thing for me.
Okay.
So so there's that, and there's also, so there's the fact that it's not researched enough, and there's lots of different sort of parts of the condition. And I think it's also that it's just not recognized as something that's important.
Why do you think that might be?
Because I think probably because it's seen as a gynecological issue, and there's still a stigma around that, not in terms of you should just be able to just get on with it. Do you know what I mean? Like it's just heavy periods, it's just period pain, like an extreme version of period pain, and you should be able to just get on with it. And it's not that at all.
No.
It's so much more. I don't know if you want me to talk about my symptoms, but
yeah, if we what we'll do, because everything you're saying there is going to be sort of you'll shed a lot of light from the brief we started with a brief discussion the other day and it ended up at 40 minutes before we even knew it.
Yeah, it did, yeah.
But yeah, if we go from what your general symptoms were from your teens to the point where you felt that something was changing and something was wrong, just so we've got a bit of background of how we went to point A to point B.
Yeah, of course. So all through my younger years, I always had problems with my stomach. So it was either, well, it was just stomach issues. So I couldn't necessarily go somewhere without knowing where the toilet was. Having my favourite toilets around the place, that was fun. Where's your favourite toilet? So yeah, having that, knowing that always in the back of your mind as well. And I thought it was stress. I thought it was just IBS. And I was diagnosed with that probably when I was about 16, I think.
Right.
I'd been suffering with it a lot longer, but yeah, 16 was probably when I got the IBS diagnosis. And all IBS is, people band it around all the time, and all it is, it's just a name for a bad stomach when they can't find anything else wrong with you.
Right. Okay.
So that's what happened then. And then when I was, like I say, about 29, 30, I started to have real issues. I had a lot of pain when I was on my period in my back and also in my rectum. So when I was trying to go to the toilet, having a poo, I couldn't go, and it was getting so severe. I also had blood as well. That's what made me go to the doctors. So I had blood in my stools. And obviously, as soon as you get that, straight away, you're going, right, I need to go to the doctors because this could be something else. Yeah. You know, you think colon cancer, you think rectal cancer, you think cancer. You get that straight away because we're always told that. And that's a good thing because obviously we need to get that checked out.
Absolutely.
So I went to the doctor, and the first doctor I saw, he said, I said, I think this might be endometriosis. And he said, why do you think that? And I said, well, because I've only got blood in my stools and pain going to the toilet when I'm on my period. That's the only time I get it. And he said to me, are you sure you're wiping the right way? And I went, I'm sorry. So he thought that I was making the fact that I had blood in my stools on my period. He thought I was kind of creating that from how I was wiping myself.
Wiping front to back.
Exactly. So that was the first hurdle I came up against. And he sent me for a flexoscopy, which is camera up the bum. And I had that, and I said to them then, I think this is endometriosis. And they said, if your doctor thinks that, you should have come in when you're on your period so that we can see it. And I said, yeah, but the problem is I don't think he does think it's that.
Right.
So I went for this, and they said, yes, there's some inflamed areas, especially around the rectum. So there was some bits and bobs there that looked like they had been inflamed but weren't anymore, which is characteristic for endo because everything inflames when you have your period and everything kind of tends to calm down when you don't.
Yeah.
Again, I don't think they know why. I don't know why, but it's basically to do with the fact that the tissue that endometriosis is a replication or a variation of the lining of your womb. So when you bleed on your period, it inflames, it bleeds, it gets exacerbated by it. Yep. So that was the issue that I felt I was having with these symptoms, with the blood in my stools and the problems going to the toilet, basically. So after I'd had that, they said there's nothing really there. So I went back and I saw he then referred me to a gynecologist. And unfortunately, that gynecologist, he was an old school guy and he was retiring. And I had a last minute cancellation appointment. They did the appointment. I had a laparoscopy, which is it's where they basically fill your tummy with air. They go in keyhole, and then he said to me, if there is any endometriosis in there, what we'll do is we'll do like a de-weed. So they'll get rid of what they can, clear it out, do a small clearance, and it should last me like about a couple of years, you know, if it's gonna work. So he did that. Remember, it was the 19th of December. He did that, and he said, I'll call you back in 6 weeks, and what we'll do is we'll put you on a series of injections, hormone injections, which will take you into a full state of menopause, which should alleviate any other pain that you've got, and put you on some synthetic HRT. So after 6 weeks, when I hadn't heard anything, I actually went into the hospital and asked them, and they said that they had no record of my ever being in there, ever having the operation. But what I didn't know, so obviously I'd gone through all this. It's quite an emotional thing as well, because obviously you're in so much pain.
Yeah.
You think you're finally on the right track. And then suddenly someone says, actually, we've got no record of this. My doctors didn't have a record of it either. So I didn't have a leg to stand on. So they said, you're going to have to go back to your doctors and get re-referred. So I did, went back to my doctors, got re-referred, went to a second gynecologist over in Broomfield Hospital, and there's a lady, and when she pulled out my notes and she said, oh yes, we've got all the details of your laparoscopy, I just broke down and cried, because the laparoscopy was it's only keyhole, but it's such an invasive thing to go through.
Yeah.
Still, you know, it's an operation, you go under general anaesthetic. It's and I had the other thing I had done while I was in the laparoscopy was I had a coil fitted. Right. Because sometimes the Mirena coil, if that's fitted, that can actually alleviate all symptoms of endometriosis, and people can live a full and happy life with it, and it works. Unfortunately for me, it didn't. Right. So the coil didn't work. I'd had the laparoscopy. I'd gone to the second gynecologist, and she explained to me that when the gynecologist had gone in, the first one, Mr. Rogers, his name was, a very lovely man, very explained everything wonderfully. She said he'd literally opened me up and looked, and there was so much in there that he couldn't clear any of it, and he had to just close me back up and not do anything. Wow. So that was when I realized that it was partly a shock as to how bad it was, but it was also a relief to know that I wasn't going mad. I wasn't in this much pain for no reason. There was something wrong, and hopefully now I could actually get something done about it. So when you said obviously they lost your records and you had to go in yourself, so they discovered all of this and then nobody had contacted you? No, nobody even knew. They hadn't informed my doctors that I'd had the operation. So what should have happened is I should have gone to my doctors to have these injections, and you have to have them. They're an injection in your bum, in the cheek of your bum, and you have them once a month, and they put you into this full state of menopause. So I was waiting for this to happen because obviously I was still in pain. They hadn't cured anything, they hadn't cleared anything. The coil can take up to 6 months to work as well. Right. So these 6 weeks of recovering from everything was quite difficult, and nobody contacted me about anything. I had to go back to my doctors, get re-referred, which was another 6 weeks. So I was basically 12 weeks. Right. Even though I was actually an emergency referral as well. So but my doctor that I went back to, this wasn't the first doctor. I asked to be referred to a different doctor because I wasn't happy with what the first doctor had said. Right. But this second doctor, he has been and remains amazing. Like my GP, he is wonderful, and he listened to me, and he said, yes, I definitely think you've got, from the symptoms you've told me, I definitely think you have got endometriosis, because at this point I didn't know. No, I had no diagnosis because I didn't have any comeback from the gynecologist. God. So that was when I went on to the second one, and then I had these injections, and you're meant to be on them for 6 months, and I was on them for 18 months. So I was originally on them for a year.
Right.
Yeah, I was on them for a year, and then she said, right, I'm going to have to, she said it wasn't getting any better. Well, it was. With the injections, I had no pain because I had no periods.
Oh, okay.
But she said, you can't stay on these forever, so we need to get you sorted out. And she said, looking at your laparoscopy images from back like a year ago, she said, even looking at those, this is too extensive for me to deal with. So I'm going to have to refer you to a specialist unit, which luckily they had in Colchester.
Right.
So I didn't have to go too far. And yeah, then I got referred to them.
And this is where is this where you had your cesarean? Hysterectomy?
That
would be the one. I knew it involved. Yeah. I knew it involved cutting somewhere.
It should be the same incision, but it's with my case, it's not, and you'll realise why when I tell you what happened. So it's like a bedtime story, isn't it?
Well, no, before we do that, we have a few comments.
Okay.
Yes, we have comments on this. We have Leanne Thompson says, surprisingly, she says, thanks for speaking out, Alex, breaking down the taboo. More talking means more recognition and more help. Absolutely.
You're welcome.
Leanne is someone else as well who very recently, I'm hoping to get Leanne on the stream as well to talk about her experience, because we're all good friends with Leanne, and she was giving us up-to-date information of what was going on during the hospital trip she's just come back from.
Right.
And you wouldn't wish that on your worst enemy. It was absolutely horrific. So hopefully Leanne will be able to come on and enlighten us to her experience as well. And she says, surprisingly common link between gastro and gynae complaints. In my experience, the departments love to blame each other and pass the buck.
Yeah, I have to say that going to Colchester Hospital was the most wonderful thing that ever happened to me, because there's a doctor there called, or a surgeon there called Mr. Whitlow, and he, it sounds so dramatic, he's genuinely my saviour, because he listened to me and he looked at my notes and he looked at what was going on and he listened to how horrendous the symptoms were that I had. You know, like I was passing out with the pain. I was blacking out. My body physically couldn't cope with the pain that I was going through, and I was just blacking out. I've never passed out in my life, even though I got really low blood pressure.
Right.
I never have. So it was a weird experience for me as well. And from pain too, like waking up and not realizing what was going on. Anyway, yeah, Mr. Whitlow was great because he listened. And when the phrase I'll never forget him saying was, after we discussed everything that was going on and I told him what I'd gone through with all the injections and things and how they'd really helped me. And I said my ultimate goal would be to have a hysterectomy, to have it all removed.
Yeah.
Because I never want children, luckily, very luckily for me, because I know there are people that are going through this and do go through this that do want children. And actually one of the ladies, when I had to have my second flexoscopy, one of the nurses, she spoke to me and she had endo as well. And she wasn't ever able to conceive because of it.
Oh, right.
So I know there are people out there that are going through that, and that must be just another layer, level on top of it. So yeah, spoke to Mr. Whitlow, and the phrase he said was, "It's your body, and you can do what you want with it." And that broke me. So this is the second time I'd cried. So can you get the idea that I was quite hormonal? I think I was quite hormonal. I was quite emotional. That's one of the symptoms. So when he said that, I realised that he was the right person that was going to deal with my situation. But going with the gynae and the gastro people at Colchester, they work so closely together because Mr. Whitlow understands how much this can affect your gut and how invasive it can be. So I eventually did have my hysterectomy. I had a full hysterectomy. Mr. Whitlow said to me, I want to leave one of your ovaries in. I said, no, thank you. I will have that taken away as well, please. And
I don't need to keep a spare, thank you.
I don't know. I don't want a little memento or anything. So yeah, I said, just get rid of it all. Just take it all away. He said, you do realise, obviously, that you'll go into a full state of menopause straight after. It can be quite a big shock for the body. And I said, I don't care. If you can get rid of this, please get rid of it. I don't want it anymore. I don't have no use for it. That was the other thing as well. It's a really weird thing to say, but I never felt connected to that part of my body. I never felt connected to my womb and my ovaries. I mean, does anyone ever? But do you know what I mean? I had no issues with getting rid of it, with taking it out, with not using it ever.
Yeah. Because
my periods had only ever been a thing of distress and something that I had to get through, something that I had to go through, which I'm sure is very similar for lots of women. But when you know that there's an outcome for it, like eventually you're going to use it to have babies, I think you have a very different relationship with it than if it's there and it's causing you a lot of pain and you're never going to use it anyway.
It sounds like you're almost in a physically abusive relationship with your part of your own body.
Yes, it is exactly like that. That beats you up once a month. Yeah, that causes you horrendous amounts of pain and you don't even want it there, but you can't get rid of it. You're physically attached to it. So when I didn't have to be anymore, it's a big thing.
Well, one of the things when we were chatting before about this was you were telling me the extent, and obviously there's lots of bits we've sort of glazed over here. Like, for example, I remember you mentioning that when you saw the female gynecologist, you said that and this is one of the things that I've heard from a lot of people who've talked about this, that some have said that gynecologists aren't ideally suited, which is a bit strange to say considering the department they work in, literally. But the fact is, they are not really qualified to sort of diagnose endo. And the experience you had was that your gynecologist, you said you felt that she didn't really believe you or wasn't on board with what you were saying.
It wasn't that she didn't believe me. I think she had there was almost like this aura of, you just need to get on with it, which is what everyone else had, because the male gynecologists never have to go through this. They have no concept of what a period is.
No.
So when you tell them that you are in pain when you're having your period, they understand you are in pain. When you say to a female gynecologist, I'm in pain when I'm having my periods, it's almost like, I don't know whether I was feeling this or whether she was projecting this. That's another thing.
Okay.
It's almost like, well, we're all in pain when we've got our periods. What's so special about you? But I think when I explained to her that I'd actually blacked out with the pain and I can't leave my house, I literally couldn't leave my house for like 3 or 4 days a month.
God.
And the other thing I had, which actually I'd forgotten about, because you do, is, so that would be 1 week, and then 2 weeks later I would have obviously I'd be ovulating,
right,
or not, but my ovaries would try and work. So with my
I can feel this is going to be painful to hear already.
Yeah, so it felt like someone had a knife. So when I was on my period, it felt like someone had a knife and they were shoving it up my bum. That was the only way to describe it. I'm sorry for being graphic, but that's the only way to describe that pain.
The more
when
information,
I had my
the better.
ovaries and I was ovulating, it felt like someone had a knife and they were sticking it into my ovary and twisting it. And that wasn't as bad as the period pain, but it was still there, and it still caused my stomach to again react to that and gave me, oh God, like horrendous stomach cramps and diarrhea and like all the disgusting, yucky stuff that, again, we don't talk about, but it happens and it's there.
This face really isn't me being squeamish, by the way. This is a face of, how could you have gone through that pain face?
Oh, I know your face. Yeah, so there was that. But yeah, after I'd gone to see Mr. Whitlow, I then had to wait like 6 months. And again, he was very kind, and he could have taken me off the injections because they're not good for you.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't really have them. But he said, no, you can't come off these. He said, because if you do, I know that you're going to be in horrendous pain and we can't have that. So he kept me on them for another 6 months. So that was where the 18 months, it might have even been nearly 2 years I was on them for, which is the most he's ever known anyone to be on them.
God.
And he's been doing this for many, many, many years. I mean, he's one of the top endosurgeons in the country, and thank God he is, because I don't know if I'd even be fixed now if he wasn't.
They seem to be few and far between. It's sad to say.
Yeah. It's so difficult for them. It's so difficult for, that was the other thing I was going to say about gynecologists. It's really difficult for them because there are so many symptoms and everyone presents differently, and it's so difficult to diagnose that without a laparoscopy and going in, and even with a laparoscopy, you don't realize how bad this is. Okay. Yeah. I had to have an MRI because they wanted to judge the extent of, especially how far it had invaded into my bowel, because they knew it had, but they didn't know how much. And with the MRI, there are 22 radiographers that do MRIs at Colchester. For endometriosis diagnosis, Mr. Whitlow will only use 2, because there's only 2 that are trained, that are good enough to look at it and find it.
God, that's depressing.
Even with those 2 that did it, they said it's a 1 centimetre, small 1 centimetre lesion that is, I'll talk about sticking together in a minute, but it's a 1 centimetre lesion, and they also did another camera, so that's 3 that 4 that I've had, but that's the 3rd one.
You've had a whole crew.
Check. I know. I could set up my own BBC News time there. Yeah, so they looked and they were like, no, it hasn't invaded into the bowel. It hasn't gone right the way through. So, because there was a suggestion that when I had my hysterectomy, I could possibly have to have a stoma at the same time. So a ileostomy, where basically you have to poo into a bag out of your tummy, and that would be for 4 months while it healed. And then they would try and reverse it. It's not always successful, but they would try and reverse it. And I would then have a normal working bum hole.
Yay.
Woohoo! Everyone wants one of those. But when I had the camera and when I had the MRI, they were like, no, it's fine. It's only 1 centimetre. It hasn't gone all the way through as far as we can see. So there's like a 95% chance that when you wake up, you will just have had the hysterectomy, everything will have been taken out, and you'll be fine. You'll be able to just heal up and carry on as normal. So then comes the hysterectomy, and obviously it's he said to me, because of where they've got to get to, they've got to go in the front, but they've got to get to the back of me, obviously. So they, rather than cutting me that way, which is a normal cesarean scar, they had to cut me that way. So I've got a scar from my belly button right the way down. And because they had to open me up, sorry for anyone who's squeamish, they had to open me up and go behind.
Right.
And that was the only way they were going to be able to do it. And it would never have been keyhole. And I said, no, it's fine. No worries. And I'm really pleased that we made that decision, because when they went in, my womb was basically encased in the endo, and my bladder, which had to be reconstructed as well in the operation, was stuck to my womb. And then my bowel was stuck to my womb, and my kidneys were fused as well to my womb, and also to my my muscles in my back as well. And Jesus. The womb was fused to the muscles in the front. So when I used to go to the gym and I used to get really bad pain and think I was really lazy and I just couldn't be asked to do stuff, like literally nearly throwing up from pain, it was because all of these things that are meant to be separate and free and floating around, not floating around, but you know what I mean, separate in your body, they were all fused together. So as soon as I started using my muscles, the endo, which is like scar tissue as well, would rip. So it would rip and it would rip and it would rip. And obviously it's all connected to things that have got nerves. So it's pulling everything. And yeah, I wondered why I was in so much pain. And that's why.
You can't, so, as a man who, I think the worst pain I've experienced is a severe gastro reaction to some medication that I was on, or being kicked in the testicles incredibly hard. That's the extent of what we and my microphones decided to
Hello, we're back.
Microphone impotence, something that all men suffer with at some point in life. But no, I can't even fathom an iota of that degree of pain. And I think, as we've said before, I don't think anyone, to have your inner organs basically fusing together.
Yeah.
Unless you've experienced anything like this, I don't think you'll ever be able to fully sympathise. You can empathise as much as you like, but...
Yeah, and again, I can't, I have no idea. I have some idea, but no idea what other people with endo are going through either, because theirs will be totally different, or their pain will be in a different place. I mean, you can get it anywhere. Like, it starts generally around the womb, but it can go into your legs, it can go into your feet, it can go into your lungs, it can go into your head, it can go anywhere, because it detaches and it moves around the body. And that pain, wherever you have it, will happen wherever you have it generally. So I think I probably had some in my legs. Obviously, they don't open your legs up and find out. I might even have some in my head. I don't know, because I used to get really bad migraines, headaches. So was it that? I just don't know. You don't know where it is. And that's another really scary thing about this. Like, you don't know where it is. And like I was saying about the MRI, they saw on the MRI that I had a 1 centimetre lesion sticking my bowel to my womb. And when they went in, I actually had a 4 centimetre lesion, and it had invaded right the way through into my bowel, and it was very near my rectum. So when they cut the portion out, and everything shrunk back, so they had to rejoin it, and it was too close for it to be working and heal up really well at the same time. So with my 95% chance of not having a stoma, I actually woke up with one.
So you got the 5%.
So I woke up, with an ileostomy, and I think that was a shock. That was a shock. I think I had a really good relationship with my bag. I called it Alf because my stoma looked like, the Alf, Alf
I remember.
You remember Alf the alien that used to be on telly with the nose? It looked like his nose. So, again, you've got to laugh, haven't you? So yeah, that was interesting. So I had that for 4 months, and but I had a really good relationship with it because I always knew that it was temporary. Yeah. I think if it had ever been permanent, I don't know if I'd have dealt with it quite as well as I did. So yeah, there was that to cope with, and actually, the reversal of that was probably 100 times worse than the whole hysterectomy and everything.
Really?
So it was a 5.5 hour operation for the hysterectomy, which they weren't expecting, I don't think. I don't think a couple of other people got their operations done that day. And I had to have an epidural as well. Oh God, everything's coming back. So I had to have an epidural, and I had to have that in for 4 days. So, an epidural that women normally have when they have their babies. So it numbed basically from my stomach down, right the way down to my feet for 5 days. And I've still got the after effects of that now. Like, my right hand side is not particularly brilliant. I was doing a workout today, and I can really feel like my right hand side is a lot weaker from my waist down. And it's just the damage to the nerves that I had from it. But again, that was one of the things that I know when we were talking yesterday, you said, oh, is there anything that that went wrong? And that's one of the things that did go wrong. Yeah. But it wasn't their fault. It's just how my body's reacted to what they had to do. Because if I hadn't have had that epidural, I wouldn't have been able to cope with the amount of pain that I would have been in from the amount of surgery that I'd had done.
Yeah, so you don't.
Yeah.
Sometimes in these things, you just don't have a choice, do you? There's so many potential outcomes, but you just have to sort of, I suppose, play the cards that you are dealt, really.
Yeah, and just accept that what you're going through right then isn't forever.
Yeah.
Whereas before having the operation, I was facing a forever with the pain that I had.
Yeah.
So this was a potential stop in that. And the other thing was, it wasn't ever necessarily gonna always work. You know, some people have a hysterectomy and unfortunately they still have endo. God. So it doesn't just go away. I'm just very, very lucky that mine at the moment hasn't reappeared.
Yeah.
But it always could do.
What we'll do is we'll come to how things have been for you after your hysterectomy. I got it right that time. I didn't call it a cesarean. We've had a few comments. Let me just scroll up. Most of them singing your praises, as rightly they should. We've had Emma Bardil, good friend of mine. This is amazing. What a great way to raise awareness of quite a horrific issue. Such a brave woman. That's you, that is.
That's another thing. Like, can I just say, people say that, you know, you're brave or whatever, and I really appreciate that, and thank you for saying that. But when you're faced with it, you have to just get on with it.
Yeah.
And I know it does take a certain type of person, but when you've been through that much pain for this long, it's nothing compared to what you've been through. So I thank you for saying that. It's very kind of you, but I don't see myself as a brave person. I just see that, like you say, I have to kind of go with what I've been dealt with, really.
Yeah, it's either that or you give up. But
yeah.
So when
I was very close to that.
Yeah.
When I was really poorly, I'm really in pain, and they lost my notes, and I was at the point where I was in a bad place.
We'll come to that, because one of the things we did want to address was the effect that it has on relationships. Your mental health is one of the biggest things that gets impacted going through this, from what I've heard from people. So Laura says, thank you so much for sharing your story, Alex Outlaw. You are bloody amazing. And she's not wrong there. Our good friend Jill Turner. Yay, good old Jill.
Yay, hi Jill.
Fabulous information, Alex. So very sad for you all and the other women having these issues and such awful pain. Leanne says, this is exactly what I'm about to face next. Did the op help? Are you finally pain-free? We shall come to that.
Yes, we will.
Right. So let us, before we go into the effects it had on you, relationships, and your mental health. So let's talk about how you're feeling now since having the hysterectomy.
Well done.
I nearly did it again. So for a lot of people, a full hysterectomy is an incredibly scary idea. The fact that obviously you can't have children, and also, as you said, it's not a guaranteed cure.
No,
so
it's not.
How's it been for you?
Amazing. I am one of the lucky ones. I know that, and I'm so very grateful. It hasn't all been plain sailing, like I said, with the whole reversal thing with the stoma. That was very difficult, and I was in a lot of pain, and I was in hospital. I was meant to be in there for 3 days, and I ended up being in there a week because I had lots of complications with it. But after that, and after I'd recovered from that, oh my gosh, without exaggeration, my whole life has changed. Because, like I was saying, I couldn't go out for like 3 or 4 days, you know, at some points, and I was in so much pain, or I had to know where my favorite toilets were. I could only go to certain places that I knew where I was going.
Yeah.
I used to get really stressed and really anxious if I was going anywhere that I didn't know. And I didn't even know that at the time. Like, I couldn't have verbalized that that's what was happening. But now I look back on it and I realize is what's happening. And actually anxiety is one of the big parts of endo, both because of the symptoms you're having and because it affects your hormones so much.
Yeah.
So anxiety was a massive thing. anxiety within relationships as well. I mean, I know I mentioned Glenn right at the start, but he is an absolute saint for what he has been through with me, because lesser men would not have put up with some of the crap that I have put him through. And he, you know, he doesn't even see it. He's like, no, it's fine. You know, no, it's just hormones, or no, it's just this, no, it's just that.
He's a drummer. He's used to having abuse.
Maybe that's what it is. He's used to like sitting in the background, you know, piping up occasionally. But he's been incredible. He looked after me the whole time. I mean, I was off work for 12 weeks when I had my hysterectomy, and then another 4 weeks when I had my reversal. And he was amazing. Like, there was nothing that was too much for him. He looked after me. I think the smell of the stoma bag might have got him a little bit. I think that was probably a little bit too much.
That's rich, considering some of the smells that man makes.
Yeah. Oh, also, I got over my fear of needles as well, because I used to be absolutely phobic about needles. And when you've got to stab yourself in the stomach every day for 30 days after having a major operation, it sort of gets you over that. So that was another positive. Also, one thing that they don't tell you about endo, or they didn't tell me, was the chronic fatigue. Oh my goodness. I have never... I wondered why I was so tired all the time. And it's not tired. It's like you can't physically do anything. Like, you have to just sit. You can't even watch telly. Like, you literally just have to sit there and not do anything because your body wants to shut down. I've been, like I said, I'm a singing teacher. I've been in lessons playing and trying to teach these wonderful children. And I've been literally like this, like falling asleep at the piano. And it's not because I haven't had enough sleep. I've had 8 hours. It's not because I've been out the night before. It's because my body is so exhausted and it can't cope with everything that's going on inside as well as normal every day. I thought I was just lazy. I genuinely thought I was a lazy person. And now I realise I am not. Like I said, I've started another business in lockdown. I'm still doing my singing teaching. You know, I do so much all the time, and I'm so blessed and lucky that I can do that now.
Well, you've always been exceptionally busy ever since I've known you. You're always involved in this project or this group, or you're constantly out and about all the time. So trying to manage endo and all that at the same time, that's a hell of a feat.
Yeah, I used to sleep in the car, not while I was driving, but I used to, like, between one thing and another, I used to have like 10-minute naps, because if I hadn't, my body just wouldn't have coped with a whole day of stuff. But I think keeping going was one of the things that kind of took my mind off it as well.
Yeah.
Like, keeping busy. And now another beautiful thing that's happened is I can sit and just relax and not think about what's going on inside my body all the time, because that was daily. And also, you don't realize how much pain affects you every day until you haven't got it anymore.
Yeah.
Because when I didn't have it, I was like, oh my God, this is what it feels like to be, again, normal. I don't like that phrase, but for me, normal for me, without pain, free from pain, this is what it's like. It's just the best feeling in the entire world.
Well, that ties in really nice with the idea of what we were going to talk about with mental health, because one of the things you said, obviously, because all the hormones traveling around your body, the excruciating pain you're in. When we talked before, you said that it changed. Obviously, luckily, Glenn stood by you through the whole of this. While a lot of people aren't so fortunate, sometimes it's too much for partners. It breaks a lot of relationships up. And like I think you said, friendship-wise, it caused problems between friends, and just your own mental health with how you felt. You said it made you exceptionally paranoid. It put you in a very dark place.
Yes, paranoia was one of the biggest things for me. And again, I didn't realise until I wasn't experiencing it anymore that was something that I was going through. So the week of my period, every month, I would be going through a stage where I was paranoid about... I'm not someone that cares. I'm not someone that worries about what people think about me. I'm not. I used to be. And I think that was actually part of the condition, because at least once a week, every month, I would be paranoid about what people thought about me, about my partner, whoever it was at the time, that even that they were cheating on me. It was that extreme, that, and I had no evidence, I had no proof of anything like that. It was just that was what was going around in my head, and it was just like on overdrive all the time. And it did, and that people were talking behind my back, and all of this sort of stuff that I would never think of now, and I wouldn't even care about. But my brain in that situation, and in that hormonal environment that it was in, was mucked up. It was just screwed.
Sounds like it turned you into a whole different person.
Massively. I look back and I joke about it, and I'm like, wow, I was a massive arsehole. But I was, because of that. I mean, I still can be sometimes with all of this, but it was exacerbated by the condition. So I think that was really difficult for me to realise afterwards. And the pain, oh my God, the pain makes you again a different person, and you can't go out and do things. Like, that was really difficult. Like, you might want to go to a party, you might want to go out with your friends or something, and you're like, oh, I can't tonight, I'm in trying to have a poo. It's just like and I'm in so much pain doing it that I might pass out, so sorry, I can't come out for a glass of wine.
Do your friends, when they, again, obviously it's very difficult to people to appreciate and understand what this kind of pain is for you, were your friends supportive, or was it again, did they sort of have that idea that, well, we're all girls, we all get periods, is it really as bad?
The friends that I have now get it.
Yeah.
They understand, because they've seen me go through all of this.
Charlie did say hello, by the way.
Hi, Charlie. And they are incredible, and they got it. They got it. But I think until now, I haven't had friends that I wanted to talk to about this, that I thought would understand it, that I thought would get it. But the friends I have now, they do listen, they do understand, they do tell me when I'm being a dickhead, and it's that support again that has been so important to me for getting through all of this, because I genuinely don't know what I would have done without the girlfriends that I have, and the boyfriends, but particularly the girlfriends, understanding what it can be like, and then timesing it by 100. And also, I've been very lucky with the people that I work for now as well. Like, even though I'm freelance, the people that I work for, the dance school that I work for, again, just incredible support. And I think mentally that helped me so much, because I knew that I could just relax and recuperate and go through all of this with that support from everyone else.
Oh, that's brilliant.
So support networks are so huge when you've got a condition like this, and you need to have people around you that you trust enough to talk to them and to make them realize what you're going through, because even though you're going through it on your own, and you are, and it is a very lonely thing to go through, you don't have to be on your own while you're doing it.
I think that's that ties in really well, actually, with some of the, because we've luckily some other people have come forward to do some of these interviews, and I've got a few.
Well done, thank you.
Yes, well done. Amazing. All of you, and thank you very much. We're still waiting on a fair few to fully agree and everything, but they've sent me little snippets of their own stories, and the similarities between what everyone seems to go through, the different phases. So not only the pain, the mental anguish that goes with it, but one of the things is that when medical practitioners don't seem to believe you, you can, or they say, no, it's just heavy periods, or one of the classic ones that people seem to say is, no, it's just in your head. Hi, everybody. I don't know if this has resumed. For some reason, we just lost the stream. I've no idea why. I'm just trying to contact Alex again. I'm just going to double check to make sure the stream is actually working and going out. So I do apologise. This doesn't normally happen. It seems to have, the platforms I'm using have just seemed to throw me out of absolutely everything. So I'm just going to try and correct it. I think things are possibly up and running again. Hang on. Hang on a moment, folks. Let me just try and see if I can get hold of Alex. Let's have a look and see if the stream has reconnected. Right, it appears we're back. Seem to be having real struggle getting hold of Alex again. Let me just try calling. Hello, darling. I'm presuming the Zoom meeting thing isn't working for you now.
It seems to be. Well, I'm on it, but it's not.
Right, I've tried re-adding you. Let's see if this will. Let me close this one. I'll try re-adding you and see if it sends you an invite.
Okay, all right.
Right, apparently we are back. Let's just see if she can pick up again. Sorry about this, everyone. Isn't technology a beautiful thing? Has it sent you an invite?
No.
Okay, let's do this the old-fashioned way. I am going to put you on FaceTime.
Okay.
And I'm going to hold you up next to my face. Hello.
Oh, isn't it wonderful? Hi, everyone.
And she's back in the room.
Hi, you little corner. Yes, I'm back.
Right, I'm going to hold you right up next to my microphone so everyone can hear you.
Okay.
Well, we've actually reached the point where you need to go anyway because you have got some teaching to do.
I have, yes. I'm doing all my teaching online at the moment because of lovely lockdown. So, yeah, I will need to go in a short while to go and teach my lovely students that have stuck with me, which is nice.
So is there anything that you'd like to say, any advice you can give for anybody who's listening?
Talk. Just don't be afraid to talk about it. And literally anything that's affecting you, even if you don't think it's the endo, make a note of it. And there's a diary on Endometriosis UK. They've actually made an endo diary that you can fill out. They didn't have that when I think it's quite a recent thing. I didn't have it, and I wish I had it done because I think it would have been the evidence that maybe I needed to take with me. Because if you present evidence and you're saying, well, this is my symptoms diary, this is what's happening, then they can't dismiss you as quickly or as much. So I think that's probably what I'd say. Symptoms diary, and talk to people. Anyone who'll listen. Just random person in the street. No, don't. People close to you, try and explain to them what you're going through, because unless you tell them, they don't understand. Unless you talk to them, they don't understand. And when they do, they're in a much better position to be able to help you.
Wise words indeed.
Thank you.
All right, darling. Well, thank you very, very much for talking to us. It's been absolutely brilliant.
You're so welcome, and thank you everyone that's watched, and I hope this does help someone, speak out, talk, and maybe recognise some symptoms that they didn't necessarily have before. I would like to just say, when I had my hysterectomy and things, it's graded, it's stage 1 to 4. It's graded the same as cancer. It's not cancer, but it's graded, and mine was stage 4, so mine was the most severe. Not everyone goes through that. Also, some people get pregnant and it disappears completely. So there's so many different varieties of this. So please don't have nightmares. Mine was quite extreme. But if you are going through something that is that extreme, then you know that someone has survived it and been okay and is very, very happy and living a wonderful life. So that as well.
Oh, that's excellent. All right, my dear. Hopefully I will see you soon once all this lockdown shenanigans is lifted.
I hope so. I need a hug. I miss hugs.
I think we're going to have to all put bin bags over each other, like full body bin bags, and just hug like that.
I'd do that. I don't care. I just need a hug.
Know the feeling. All right, darling. You take care. And again, thank you so much for joining us.
And you. So love to Carrie.
I will do. See you soon.
Love to you both.
Bye-bye.
All right, see you later. Bye.
Bye. Right, sorry about the technical issues there, everybody. We powered through like we do. Right, so massive thanks to Alex for joining us. Our next conversation will be this Friday with my partner, Carrie Aldridge. She is currently in the situation where all the signs are pointing towards that she has endo or something of that ilk. She is going through similar experiences of being passed to service to service, not being given definitive answers, or being given an answer and then them reversing their opinion and being fobbed off in this that way or the other. So one of the great things I'm hoping that we achieve by doing these conversations are meeting people with all these different experiences and seeing them at different stages of the proceedings, and also seeing how similar they are, why people are being treated in this fashion. Again, is it because it's a fairly new illness? Are people not wanting to commit to giving diagnosis on something they're not too sure about? We're looking to try and find any answers through everybody's experiences. So if anyone has any questions for anyone who I've spoken to, you can message me and I can forward your information on, and you can maybe speak to the people I've interviewed directly. But anything that anyone can do, or any information that they can offer to help people who are suffering with endo, please get in touch, share this around, and hopefully with a bit of awareness, we can maybe try and make some form of change and contribution to a better life for people suffering with this horrendous illness. So thank you very much for tuning in. Take care, everybody, and I will see you on Friday for another one of these talks. So all the best. Thanks a lot. Take care.